Yes.
Get ready to take control of your own financial destiny. It's time to build your dream business. Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur.
This just got exciting.
With your host, Spider Graham. Your education starts now.
Hello and welcome to the broadcast. This is Spider. And once again, I have a rolling podcast happening today, trying to use my time in the car as wisely as possible. And I wanted to take some time today to share with you a topic that generally isn't spoken about when we talk about business, and that is what to do when you have to deal with very difficult clients. And so we're really talking about how do you fire clients. I don't know, you're thinking, wait a second. I spend so much of my time trying to find clients and trying to cultivate good relationships. Why would I want to fire them? Well, there are times in your career you will find you're dealing with people who are just, you're not going to be able to make them happy. And you're not going to be able to satisfy them. And in a lot of ways, what ends up happening as well is that you find yourself in a situation where every day you work with a client, you're losing money through your resources, through your time, or through actual money. And so there are some challenges along the way when we have to deal with difficult clients. And I've had a few in my career, and I want to share a couple quick stories with you, give you kind of a sense of how I helped myself out of these situations and how I dealt with these problems. One of the situations several years ago, I worked with a client, and like any good relationship, it starts off very friendly and happy and positive, and we all like that, don't we? And it was one of these situations where we were very excited to work with this client. They had a very interesting project. We were doing digital media development for them. And we would sit down, and they would actually say, hey, we're going to have a planning meeting. Would you come in and spend some time? We want you to be involved in the process. And we're like, sure, we'll do it. And it turned out we were ending up in their offices like 2 or 3 times a week for a couple of hours going through these planning sessions. And, it's actually not covered by the scope of our contract. We were supposed to do the development once they had figured everything out, but also now you find yourself in a situation, well, if I can help move the process along, that'll be great. Also, I can help them be innovative and come up with new, exciting ways to do what they're trying to do. And also, and this is important when you're doing any kind of media development, is to make sure that they're not doing things that are technologically impossible or requesting things that you're not going to be able to fulfill. So we're in these meetings, and it's not just a week, it's like several weeks in a row we're in these planning meetings trying to get things going. And we're like, all right, well, we really needed to start production on this a couple of weeks ago. We're still doing all this planning. Can we kind of pull it together? Now, in most contracts, especially when you do development work, a lot of it's tied into the whole idea of milestones. So when you get to a milestone in the production, then you get a payment. So you say, okay, well, we've done this phase, and we get this much money as a result of it. Well, we noticed right away when we came back with the first phase completed and said, here you go, folks. They said, well, can we change this? And I really don't like this, and I'm not sure this is clear to someone who's going to be using it. And so a lot of things that we had already outlined and developed that were in our blueprint are suddenly being changed 11th hour. Now, one of the things I take pride in myself is I'm very accommodating. I work very hard for meeting the needs of my clients. I want them to walk away happy, frankly. That's important to me. And so it's one of those, okay, you know what? Let's see what we can do to take care of it. So there's not a lot of pushback because you want to make sure that they are happy. But unfortunately, every time we delivered anything, we ran through the same process. So we started to notice that every time we dropped something off, deliverable, it would just get a lot of pushback. Oh, we don't like this, let's change this, and it just kept going, make fixes. So now we're in a situation where not only is it taking us longer to do the project than we actually bid on, but we're also not getting paid for the milestones that we're coming up to on time. So I have people I need to pay, I have other vendors. I mean, it's a problem. And anyone who's been in business understands that it's not just you who's suffering when you don't get paid. And so, trying to do what I can, and, eventually you have to start pushing back going, look, we can make those changes. Let's do it in the next phase. But, this is not something we ever discussed. It's not in the scope of the contract. And it got worse and worse and worse. And you find yourself then kind of in this adversarial relationship where things are feeling really stressed out and tense and a bit contentious, where you're like, look, I need to get paid so we can move on to the next thing, and they're withholding money, and they're making all these bargaining. Well, if you don't get this stuff to us by X date, then we won't pay, and it gets really acrimonious. So you find yourself stressed out, and I found myself in this particular instance very stressed out because in a lot of ways, what was going through my mind was, what am I doing wrong? Why is it I can't keep this customer happy? What is it I can do to do a better job to make sure that they do stay happy? Is it always your fault? Not necessarily. But I'd find myself waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning just totally having an anxiety attack, thinking, how can I make this work? How can I fix this? How can I get the checks in so I can cover my needs, etc.? And you go for a walk at 3 a.m. to try to clear your mind and deal with them. And after putting up with this, by the way, this is about 5 months worth of work that is happening here. Okay, this is not just a couple weeks. This is a long time. I am a very stubborn person when it comes to providing a good level of customer service and support. But you finally just say, I don't think I can help them. So while this is all going on, I end up in a conversation with a friend of mine who is also a competitor. We had a great relationship, and oftentimes we would pass work on to one another. Each one of us became swamped and saying, I can't cover this for you now, but this guy over here will take good care of you. So I really trusted his work, and I trusted his judgment. And I said, look, I'm running into a situation here, and I laid it out. I wasn't going to hand him a hot potato and not tell him what it was. I said, I'm just really running into some difficulties. Frankly, I need to move on, work on other things, and maybe your team can do a better job of satisfying their needs. Is this something you want to take on? And he's like, yeah, I think we can help them here. So I sat down with the client. I said, look, I'm sorry I wasn't able to make this happen for you, but you're going to have to keep the money that we agreed upon, but now you can use it to meet the needs, and this developer is going to help you out. And I got out of there. And I felt bad in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a certain level of shame that I gave up on something that was really important and that I wanted to complete. On the other side of it, you start to realize, like, wow, someone just took a huge monkey off my back. This is kind of okay. I'm sleeping again at night because I'm not sitting around worrying about the client. And frankly, at this point, I'm not happy with the client, and I'm not having a good, happy, positive thoughts about this client in particular. And I didn't really think about the project for a while. I just figured, okay, he's going to take care of them. They're going to be good. Not my problem. I can focus on other projects and other clients. We're moving in the right direction. And it wasn't for a few years that we actually sat down to have this conversation. I said, hey, by the way, were you able to help them out? Were you able to get them to where they needed with this project? He said, well, we got a little bit way down there, but then they threatened to sue us for breach of contract. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, they said they weren't happy with how we were doing the project, and we weren't doing things based upon their needs, and it just got very ugly. And so we had to let them go. I said, what did you do? He said, well, we handed them on to another developer, some folks who didn't really like all that much, and figured that they could deal with it. I said, oh, and so did you ever hear what happened to them? Yeah, they got sued by the client as well for breach of contract. And so I'm kind of reeling on this. I'm thinking, oh, you know what? In a lot of ways, I'm kind of blessed because at least I didn't get sued by them. But this was the pattern. I was not going to make these people happy no matter what I did. And so you kind of come to terms with the fact that, all right, you know what? I kind of dodged a bullet there. And as much as I wanted to make this happen, it wasn't going to happen. And this happens from time to time. You're going to run into a client who is just going to be difficult personality, or just people that really don't seem to understand what you're doing for the money they're giving you, or resent you for the fact that they have to pay you for what's going on. And in my experience, you're going to run into people who are just unhappy people. And I've seen this not only as a developer and as a salesperson, but also as a teacher. Every so often you run into a student who, no matter what you do for them, it's not good enough. No matter what you do for them, they're going to say horrible things about you in an evaluation. And you just take it in stride after a while. You just say, you know what? I've done the best that I can, and I know I did the best that I can. And I find in life, you can't please everybody. And it's just as much as you hate doing it, as much as you hate the criticism, and as much as you hate people who are unhappy because you didn't help them out, it's going to happen. So, how do you deal with this, and how do you do it with it gracefully? So more recently, I was dealing with a client issue in which a client wanted me to come in and provide them with some foundational sales training. Their team needed to better understand how to work with the people they had on the phones, how to do a better job of closing deals, that kind of thing. So a lot of very foundational stuff, and I was perfectly happy to help them out. But I don't walk into a situation and say, hey, I have the solution for you. I sit down and I talk with them first. So we got on the phone, and so the head of HR introduced me to the gentleman that I would be working with who was representing the company for the training. And so we talked for a while about what their needs were, and I made lots of notes. And then I followed up with an outline saying, here, is this the kind of thing you're looking for? And he said, yeah, this is great. This is really what we want. So I said, fantastic, and I put the curriculum together so that it met their needs. So the day of the training, and it's several hours of driving to get there and set up in 6 hours, we had a really, really great day. good team of people to work with. We did a lot of hands-on stuff so they could really just get involved in the situation and not just listen to me lecture at them for 6 hours. And, some fun discussions. It was a really nice day. And toward the end of the training, I pulled my client contact aside and said, hey, are you getting what you need out of this? Is this what your team needs? He goes, yeah, this is great. This is exactly what we need. Hey, guess what? I'm happy. It's been a good day. I put my all into it. They got what they needed. I'm ready, And so it's a 2-part training. We scheduled the other training about a month afterwards, give the team some time to let this sink in, and also just work in our different scheduling needs and all that. So I go home. I'm feeling pretty good. I get a call from the HR rep the next morning saying, hey, how do you think, the way she couched it was, how do you think the training went yesterday? And I said, well, from what I heard in direct feedback that I got from the people in the audience, it went really well. They were very happy. And then there's this long pause, and I said, unless you heard something different. And she said, well, I heard something different. I heard that the content wasn't on point, and it was kind of unprofessional, and just, you kind of just think, all right. And of course, your initial inclination is to become defensive. That's certainly not what happened. And I'm thinking, what happened? And I'm thinking, I need to talk to my client contact and find out, why there was this kind of change of face. What happened here? Well, it turns out that it wasn't him. And it turns out that it was a woman who was also at the training. And believe it or not, it was her second day on the job. I trained her on her second full day on the job. And she went back and she said, well, that was not good. And that, I've been in training before and he should have done this and he didn't do this. And, I expected this. And that's really what it came from. It wasn't that the content was bad. It's just her expectations and how it should have been delivered, et cetera, didn't meet her expectations. So anyway, once again, I'm going to do what I can to keep my client happy. So I say, okay, you know what? If it didn't work out for you, then I will take full responsibility for that. And if we have to do 2 more sessions to make sure that we meet these needs, then I will eat that session. And so I said, look, what is it you need? What is it that was missing? What is it I can do better here? Okay, now it's very hard. It's very humbling sometimes to go in front of someone and say, mea culpa. Apparently I screwed this up, and I'm going to do what I can to make it better. And so now I'm dealing with a completely different person, and she's like, well, I want this, and we don't like this. And I said, okay. So you're changing the curriculum, you're making tweaks. And once again, I'm saying, here, this is what I want to do. What do you think? And she's like, okay, well, I think this will work. But I also want to send a questionnaire out to the team so we can get a better sense of what their needs are. Once again, she doesn't really know the team because she's only been on the team for a few days herself, right? So I said, okay, let's get something out the door that will help me to do a better job assessing their needs. So I sit down and I spend several hours and I put together an online questionnaire. And I said, okay, I think we have something that's going to do a good job of drilling down and finding out what it is that they need. And I said it to her, just let her know what's going on. She said, well, I don't like some of these questions. Could you rewrite some of the questions? Number 5. And I'm thinking, this is a questionnaire I put together so that I can assess what their needs are for my purposes. Why are you rewriting the questions? But once again, you know what? Let's just make it happen. It's worth a little extra time to go in there. So I rechanged the questions. I said, she's like, all right, well, I don't really like this, and we kind of want to go in this direction. And you start to realize that you're just looking into the abyss. This is a black hole. And once again, no matter what I do, it's not going to work. Either because whatever I'm doing is just not going to meet the needs of the group, or this particular individual just wants to be the center of attention or wants to control the process to a point where it's going to drive you out of your mind. And I sat on it for a few days and really debated with myself on how to approach it. And I finally called up the HR person. I said, look, I really want to help your team out here, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do as good a job or meet their needs in the way they need to be met. And I'm sorry for that. I really am. I said, but in this case, I think you'd be better off finding somebody else to handle the training needs. And I walked away with nothing. That full day of training that I provided, not a cent, nothing. My time, my resources, my education, I got nothing as a result. And you know what? Sure, I was unhappy about the decision. I was unhappy being put into that position. But in the long run, I was plenty happy that I didn't have to continue down that path, because from what I was seeing, yeah, I didn't make any money, but I was going to spend more time in the future, spending more time and more energy, and still not make money the way things were running. So this is just the way projects go sometimes. This is just the way that working with clients goes sometimes. You can't always get what you want. And the clients, like I said, sometimes you're going to find people who are just difficult to work with. And if you can find a way to gracefully bow out, and by the way, I always encourage anybody, never burn a bridge. Don't go out in a blaze of glory. Don't call the client up and say, you know what, you're horrible to work with. I hate your guts. I never want to, don't do that. You just graciously say, look, I'm sorry I was not able to help you. Hopefully I can pass you on to somebody else who can do it, or, you can find somebody else on your own who can better fit your needs. And just walk away and be as professional and take the high road every time. You're going to be a lot happier. Now, I talk an awful lot about the power of persistence. I talk about the importance of never, ever, ever giving up. So to come up and say, by the way, give up seems a little paradoxical. And like I said, it's very hard for me to give up on things. I don't do it well. I don't enjoy it. But there are times when you realize that if you don't give up, it's going to cost you an awful lot more in the future than if you do give up. And that's where you make the assessment. If you say to yourself, if I keep working for this client, I'm going to start losing money, then you're in a bad place. Because from a business standpoint, obviously you're not there just because you have way too much free time. You're trying to make a living. You're trying to pay other people. So you need to make sure you do it right. Sometimes walking away is just the best course of action. So do an assessment. Don't kick yourself if you need to do it from time to time. And by the way, in my career, I've only had to do it, I believe, 4 times. I've fired 4 clients in my career, and I've worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of fantastic people that I was able to satisfy and make happy. Anyway, that's all I have on the topic for today. As always, thank you so much for your time and attention. And hey, by the way, come visit us on spidergram.com. We're putting together a wonderful community of digital marketers and people who are able to help and learn from one another, as well as share what I have to bring to the table. And we would love to have you join our group of folks. It's a good place to be. And by the way, it's the kind of thing that pays for itself really quickly when you start putting this stuff together. All right. Anyway, that's it. Spidergram here. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you real soon.
For more free resources and advice for entrepreneurs, visit spidergram.com and become a subscriber today.